Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors. We are pleased to have the Boone County Veterans Color Guard present the colors of our great nation.
Detail, halt, left face, colors post, hand salute, 2, left face, forward heart.
Please remain standing and join select members of the Belvedere North High School's a cappella choir in singing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Good afternoon, Belvedere students, staff, and community. My name is Jim Friesma, and I'm proud to serve as the principal of Belvedere North High School.
And I am Billy Lewis, principal of Belvedere High School.
It is my privilege to welcome you to the 2020 District 100 High School Virtual Veterans Day Assembly. If there's one thing that we have learned over the last 8 months, it is to not take things for granted. All of us have had our normal routines changed due to our current pandemic. Today, this makes me more grateful for the freedoms that we do have, thanks to the veterans. We have the freedom to express oneself, the right to a free press, the ability to practice or not practice religious beliefs, the right to vote for our governmental leadership, due process to ensure the assumption of innocence until proven guilty, and the right to a free, high-quality public education.
We must recognize that throughout our world's and our nation's history, these rights, these paths of possibility have at times been closed off to those of certain religions, races, and social statuses. We must recognize that these paths of possibility are simply not open in every corner of the world, even today. However, if we are to ask how these paths of possibility have become more open and more free of obstacles throughout human history, we look no further than our American military veterans. What we will see are individuals of differing backgrounds who have answered a common call to protect the rights, freedoms, and liberties of all Americans and of our brothers and sisters around the world. For their effort, their sacrifice, we owe you, students of District 100, a quality and meaningful education and a chance at a bright future. and you owe them your best effort and the commitment to make the most out of the opportunities that many around the world do not have. These opportunities are what our veterans have fought so hard to provide and to protect. We all owe them our gratitude and appreciation today, on this Veterans Day, at this assembly, and every day.
At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Becky, mathematics teacher at Belvedere High School and veteran of the United States Navy and Navy Reserve, to present the Veterans Day proclamation.
Good afternoon. November 11th, 1918 was a significant moment in our shared history with the world. The armistice signed that day marked an end to the hostilities of World War I. The Great War was the first of its kind, a global war that saw the involvement of many nations from around the world. To commemorate the end of the conflict, to honor those who served, and to remember those who gave their lives defending the world, November 11th became known as Armistice Day. However, it wasn't until 1938 when Armistice Day became a national holiday in the United States. Following a resolution by Congress in 1954, President Eisenhower made a proclamation that November 11th would become Veterans Day. In this proclamation, he stated, "Whereas in order to expand the significance of that commemoration, and in order that a grateful nation might pay appropriate homage to the veterans of all its wars who have contributed so much to the preservation of this nation, the Congress, by an act approved June 1, 1954, changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day. Now, therefore, I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, President of the United States of America, do hereby call upon all of our citizens to observe Thursday, November 11th, 1954 as a Veterans Day. On that day, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom. And let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace so that their efforts shall not have been in vain." November 11th, from that day on, has been known as Veterans Day in honor of those who have or are currently serving our great nation.
Thank you, Mr. Becky. At this time, let us recognize our staff veterans from Belvedere High School, Belvedere North High School, and the central office of District 100.
Dr. William Adey, Army National Guard. Mrs. Pam Ashens, Marines. Mr. Phil Baker, Air Force, E4. Mr. Peter Becky, Navy and Navy Reserves. Dr. Dave Carson, Army Reserves. Mr. Stephen Drake, Army.
Mr. Harold Grease, Army. Mr. Dan Hartzell, Navy. Mr. Robert Hunter, Navy. Mr. Mike Myers, Air Force. Dr. Josh Rodriguez, Army National Guard. Mr. Rob Wesselhoff, Army Reserves. And Mr. Darwin Whitehead, United States Marine Corps.
At this time, we are honored to recognize a current District 100 student who is enlisted to join the United States Armed Forces, Andrew Coombs, Belvedere North High School, Marines.
At this time, please welcome the Belvedere High School Wind Ensemble as they play taps in memoriam of those veterans who are no longer with us. Students, staff, and guests, please stand and place your right hand over your heart. As is customary, we will hold a moment of silence after the playing of taps.
Thank you to the BHS Wind Ensemble. Our guest speaker for today is Pam Ashens. She attended the original Caledonia Elementary School and Belvedere Junior High School, and is a 1983 graduate of Belvedere High School. She currently has 2 granddaughters who attend BHS, as well as one who graduated from BHS 2 years ago. She has worked as the executive secretary to the superintendent and recording secretary to the Board of Education for District 100 for 12 years, and is married to her high school sweetheart, who is also a BHS graduate and veteran of the Air Force. Mrs. Ashens enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1985, where she served 6 years active duty service and 2 years inactive reserve before getting out of the Marine Corps in 1993. And if I remember correctly, yesterday was a Marine Corps birthday, so happy belated birthday to the Marine Corps. Ms. Ashens, how old is the Marine Corps, by the way?
The Marine Corps is 245 years old.
So Mrs. Ashens, what made you decide to join the Marine Corps?
I actually enlisted somewhat on a dare. I'm the type of person that when you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong. And I was told that I wasn't going to be able to handle boot camp. And I also didn't enlist right out of high school. I had 2 years of college before I went in.
What was that like, leaving everything you knew behind and going off to service, not knowing what to expect? What was that first night like?
Oh my gosh, that first night, they literally kept us up the whole entire night, sitting on a hard gym floor, filling out paperwork. And by the time we got to the barracks, all we wanted to do was go to sleep. But they insisted and made us take a shower at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then we had a very early wake up call. And oh my gosh, that was something. They came in and they turned on all the lights, like, get up, get up, get up, banging lids of metal garbage cans together, rolling the cans down the aisles. I was half dazed trying to get out of my rack, get my shoes on, and all without any luck. Then the recruit kitty corner from me, she fainted and she passed out on the floor. And I thought to myself, well, oh my God, what in the world did I just get myself into?
So tell us a little bit more about your experience during boot camp.
Well, besides all of our schooling, there is a lot of PT, of course. We went through a confidence course, which is basically an 11-station obstacle course to build confidence as well as upper body strength. Then there was marksmanship and gas chamber training. We had to rappel down a 50-foot tower and do all kinds of field training, to include carrying our gear on our back with our weapons, living out in the fields and eating the famous MREs.
Marksmanship training. That sounds really cool. What kind of weapon did you use?
We used an M16A2 service rifle.
Okay. And what kind of a shooter were you?
There's 3 different levels. There's marksman, sharpshooter, and expert. And I had always received the highest level, which is expert.
Oh, and what about the gas chamber in the wall?
The gas chamber, that was not fun at all, and probably my least favorite thing we had to do. Once we got inside the building where the gas was released, we had to remove our masks and keep them off while everyone said their name, rank, and serial number. And of course, there's always someone who panics, so you're just standing there waiting and waiting for what seems like hours before you can put your mask back on. And then by the time you come out, your eyes are watering and stinging. You literally have snot running out of your nose, dripping all over your clothes and the ground. You can't even imagine having all of that inside of you. And like COVID right now, you couldn't touch your face with your hands or wipe your face with your shirt because it had gas all over. You had gas all over you and your clothing. So you were literally like one hot mess. And the wall, we almost saw a recruit get killed because she panicked and didn't stop herself before she got to the bottom. And our DI literally had to run and throw herself on the ground to get the slack out of the rope. And that was probably like the scariest thing that I witnessed.
Wow, that seems like a lot to take in. How did you cope with all that?
You know, it wasn't always easy. One of the first things I did was join our church choir, but I literally would cry myself to sleep just about every night, except for the last night. Then I was so excited to be leaving the next day that I don't even think I slept that night. But one thing that really helped was getting letters from home. I think I was the only recruit that received a letter from home every single day. So that really helped me feel like I wasn't there alone. In fact, I'm pretty sure my mom was just as homesick for me as I was for her. It was definitely a pretty close tie. But boot camp really makes you appreciate family and all the comforts and luxuries that you had. Everything that your parents did for you, all the things you take for granted every day. You know, we didn't have cell phones to text or Snapchat or to call anyone. So during your time at boot camp, you're pretty much isolated and stripped away from everything that you know and love. And it's really hard going 12 weeks with no real contact or connection to the outside world.
So you talked about appreciating family and taking things for granted, and you mentioned cell phones. I'm sure that's something our students can definitely relate to, but what else comes to mind?
Probably holidays would be the next hardest thing. I was there for Mother and Father's Day and 4th of July, and we did get the night off to watch fireworks. But for an example, we had to sit on an asphalt parking lot, Indian style, looking straight ahead. And you couldn't say a word. In fact, you couldn't even show any kind of an expression or emotion at all, nor turn your head and look at your platoon mate that was right there next to you. And meals, you didn't order what you wanted. You know, no one made you your favorite meal or something different because you didn't like what was being served. You know, you ate what they gave you, and they ate when they gave it to you. And when the DIs were done, you were done. So you learned to eat fast if you wanted to get filled up. And to this day, I mean, 35 years later, I still eat fast. I'm always the first one done at the table and still get teased by my friends and family.
So I don't think we mentioned this. Where was your boot camp?
All the women go to Paris Island, South Carolina, and then the men are divided between Paris Island, South Carolina, and San Diego, California.
Gotcha. And then what was your next step after boot camp?
After boot camp, I went to Camp Johnson in North Carolina for my schooling to become an 01.
Gotcha. So then you did all the schooling, and then where were you stationed at?
My first duty station was at Camp Pendleton, California, where I served 3 years, and then I transferred to Cherry Point in North Carolina. And I actually tried to get Adak, Alaska for my second duty station, but I got bumped.
Mrs. Ashens, were you an 01 the entire 6 years that you served?
I was, but in a couple different roles. I started out as a service record book clerk, which would be equivalent to our human resources, and I did that for 1 year. Then a position came available in the general staff, and my captain recommended recommended me for it. I interviewed and got the position. And once you're in with the general, you're pretty much in with them for the rest of your enlistment.
So what was that like?
That was both good and bad. And my last position, I would say, was a little nerve-wracking. For an example, when I checked into my first duty station at Camp Pendleton, it was hurry up and sit around and wait all day for the entire process to take place. But then when I transferred to Cherry Point and arrived on base, they actually had a car and a driver waiting for me that took me straight to my office. There was no checking in, no waiting, no anything. It was basically the red carpet treatment. But that position was also the most nerve-wracking. The Marine Corps spent $10,000 to give me a security clearance, and it was my responsibility to go to the comm center early each morning before anyone else arrived to work to retrieve all the confidential messages that came in the night before and prepare a board for the general to keep him on top of things. So I would literally have to sort through stacks of messages and decide what was important for the general and his staff to see, and then shred the rest. So if I accidentally shredded something that they should have seen, there was no way of getting it back. And needless to say, that was a huge responsibility and one that I did not take very lightly.
Yeah, it's a lot to take care of for sure. So what was your highest rank?
I only made it to corporal or E4 because the O1 field was so saturated that it was hard to get promoted. And that was another drawback working to the general. When my major sent me before a meritorious board for a promotion, I didn't receive it because they didn't want it to appear like I was getting favoritism for being part of the general staff.
Gotcha. So did you receive any medals while you were in the Marine Corps?
I did. I received a Good Conduct Medal and 2 Navy Achievement Medals, which is one of the highest awards an enlisted person can receive.
Did you ever see any combat time?
When I went in, it was peacetime, so the closest I ever got to combat was Desert Storm. I had written orders that said upon verbal orders, I had 24 hours to report. So I had to get a will, power of attorney, and all my you-know-what together. However, I never did receive orders to report.
Gotcha. So you stated in the beginning of our conversation that you basically went on a dare. Do you ever regret going to the military?
No, never. If I did have any regrets, though, I guess it would be that I did not make a career out of it. I could have retired at the young age of 40 and still had plenty of time to start another career if I wanted and collect 2 pensions. But my father was ill at the time, so going back home to spend time with him before he passed was the right decision at the time, without a doubt. I really think being in the military makes you appreciate family even more.
Mrs. Ashens, if a young woman or really anyone was thinking about entering the service right now, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Not only to prepare yourself physically for boot camp, but probably more so mentally. It's a lot of head games, and I would almost guess even more so now than when I went in. We actually had a recruit try to kill herself. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. So they need to make sure every link of the chain is as strong as it can be in order to be prepared for whatever may come your way.
Wow. And finally, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
I think Veterans Day means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and in all honesty has even changed for me over the years. When people find out I served in the Marine Corps and thank me, even to this day, I really don't feel like I deserve that thanks. I'm certainly not a hero, nor do I think of myself as one. And even though I was on standby for Desert Storm, I never saw what so many veterans saw during World War I or II, like my dad or my grandpa, or what our Vietnam vets went through, or even our deployed military today. But we do all have one thing in common. We all left our friends and our families. Some fought for our country and our freedom. Some made the ultimate sacrifice, but we were all willing to put our country needs before our own. It means making a lot of sacrifices, missing holidays and special occasions away from those we love. It means long hours of duty and a lot of hard work to include nights and weekends and holidays, because when you serve 24/7. Veterans live disciplined lives so others don't have to, but yet all have the freedom to live the lives they choose. It's also having courage to leave behind everything you know and love and take for granted for the unknown, the unknown of what lies ahead, the unknown if you'll ever return back to a life you once knew because friends seem to move on and without you. It's not only knowing that people now have a newfound respect for you that they might not have had before, but then also discovering a self-respect for yourself that you never even knew existed within you. So when someone says thank you to me for serving, I still don't take it as it's meant directly for me, but look at it rather meaning more all service members, past, present, and even future. I view it as more of an acknowledgement that they truly understand and appreciate where their freedoms come from. And to date, only 9% of veterans are women. So I'm especially proud to say that I have served my country as one of the few, the proud, and as a woman Marine. So to all my brothers and sisters who have served and continue to serve in the Marine Corps, today I say to you, Semper Fi. And on behalf of all of those who have served in any branch of the military, not only do I thank you, but I am proud and honored to say you're welcome. And thank you, not just from me, but from all of us, when someone says, thank you for your service. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to have served, and your acknowledgement is greatly appreciated by a veteran, and especially by this Marine Corps veteran. And I could seriously go on and on forever, but I have gone on long enough, so I'll just wrap it up with what an honor and a privilege it has been to be part of this amazing program this afternoon. I know there are so many behind the scenes people who played such a major part in this, and in my opinion, they're the ones most deserving of the praise today, so our veterans could be recognized. So a big, huge thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ashens.
Thank you, Ms. Ashens.
On behalf of the staff of District 100, students of District 100, and Belvedere community, appreciate your service to our country, to our district, and for sharing your story with us today. It's very much appreciated, and we learned a lot from you today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Attendees, at this time, I'll ask you to please join me in welcoming the Belvedere High School Choir as they sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy God with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriotry, dreams that sees beyond the years, like alabaster Satan's gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law.
Thank you, BHS Choir. At this time, I would like to introduce Belvedere North's Assistant Principal, Mr. Matt Fry, who organized today's events, to share his closing remarks.
I would like to offer my sincere thanks and appreciation to Ms. Pam Ashens, Mr. Peter Becky, and the Boone County Veterans Color Guard. I would also like to thank the BNHS a cappella for singing the national anthem, the BHS Choir for singing America the Beautiful, the BHS Wind Ensemble for playing taps, Dr. Phil Vermillion for putting together the Veterans Day slideshow video shown before the assembly and the national anthem, Mr. Dan Foster and Mr. Mark Miller for putting together the performance videos, and Mrs. Michaela Miracle for filming segments of our assembly. Last week, Michaela and I had the distinct pleasure and honor of working with the Boone County Veterans Color Guard to film the presentation and retiring of the flag. I showed up at BHS 10 minutes prior to the agreed upon time of 5 o'clock, only to discover that even though I was early, I was late. They were all there at 4:30. That evening was a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. We enjoyed listening to you tease each other. And most importantly, we are so thankful that we got to spend that time with you. At the end of our time together, I asked them how they would like to be individually introduced. Without missing a beat, they said they wanted to be introduced as the Boone County Veterans Color Guard and not individually. This is just another example of how selfless and dedicated our veterans are to each other, our community, our nation, and our future. Although we were only together for a short while, it is a memory that I will carry with me. Before we conclude our Veterans Day Assembly, I want to take a moment to thank all of our veterans. We are able to enjoy freedoms that much of the world does not, thanks to your service and sacrifice. At this time, we will conclude our Veterans Day Assembly by retiring the colors. Please stand and remove your hats and place your hand over your heart as the colors are retired.